Hi YouTube, Darth here. Normally I'd have a community test environment update for you on Sundays, but there really wasn't anything noteworthy that happened this week on the CTE despite 3 patches. So today I figured I'd talk about some upcoming content for Battlefield 4 and the future of the Battlefield franchise in general now that we have the Battlefield Hardline release behind us. First, and this is probably the biggest news of the week, we've got 5 new weapons coming in May to Battlefield 4. DICE designer Julian, also known as JJJU, released a series of photographs teasing the new weapons throughout this week on Twitter. So far we've only seen 4 of the 5 weapons, which leaves some speculation as to what the 5th weapon could be. The best community guesses about the 5 weapons are as follows. We're looking at what most likely is the AN-94, OTS-14 Groza, the L86A2, and a lever-action rifle whose role is still up for debate. Assuming that DICE doesn't spill all of the beans shortly after I make this video, that 5th weapon is still a mystery and it could be anything. It could even be a boat. But I thought I would look at 2 of the weapons we already know about in a bit more detail. Starting with the AN-94, I'm not at all surprised to see this in a weapon DLC. For whatever reason, the AN-94 has been a consistent fan favorite among people asking developers for weapons from previous Battlefield titles. When I was faithfully playing Battlefield 3, I saw it occasionally, but it definitely wasn't a weapon of choice for most players. That honor generally went to the M16A3, M416, or one of many other assault rifles as DLC weapons came and went out of favor. The AN-94 was the weapon you played with if you wanted what was the equivalent of a select fire DMR on the assault class. The primary feature of the AN-94 is its recoil-defying 2-shot mechanism. The reason it fires 2 bullets is that the first round is designed to pierce and defeat body armor, while the second following shot penetrates into the body cavity. It's a nasty piece of work, and no doubt it would be more common on the actual battlefield if it weren't unpopular with officers and soldiers and mechanically unreliable. As for the battlefield experience, its uniqueness has been somewhat supplanted from Battlefield 3 to 4 by the fact that all classes can now use DMRs. So the need for a high accuracy, high single burst weapon has been dampened by this design decision. But the AN-94 is a fan favorite, and I definitely like the times I played with it as it is a unique feeling weapon. But given its niche design, I really don't think it's going to be replacing the AK-971, ACE-23, or the M416 as the reigning assault rifle champions of Battlefield 4. The next weapon I'm familiar with from the Battlefield franchise is the L86A2, a light machine gun version of the L85. This was my favorite LMG from Battlefield 3, and I definitely got quite a bit of use out of it as it was highly accurate and carried a lot of ammunition. The bullpup design made it quite good in close range, and it just felt unique at a time where most people were using the M27 IAR. But that's also something that was really great about Battlefield 3. The light machine gun design was far superior to Battlefield 4. Powerful LMGs with belt-fed ammunition were so inaccurate that they were nearly always married to the bipod. Lightweight, magazine-fed machine guns, on the other hand, were very mobile. There were some exceptions, and I think certain YouTubers' positive reactions to being able to run and gun with the heavier MGs like the M240B probably led DICE down some bad design decisions. But for the most part, there was a clear distinction among the LMGs and maintained the defining line between heavy infantry and light infantry, defensive and offensive setups. Fast forward a few years to Battlefield 4, and now every LMG can be wielded while on the move or standing. Just think about how many complaints there have been about the MG4 or AWS. If the only time you encountered these weapons when they were on a bipod, I think you would have different feelings about them. This gets me to my first speculative future topic for Battlefield 4, a rumored upcoming redesign for LMG weapons. I've heard whispers about an LMG redesign for months, and if it ever materializes, I'll be pretty happy about it. Some things I've heard about are dramatic increases to the spread per shot, upwards recoil, and other mitigating features for the LMGs. And I'd like to see them split more along Battlefield 3 lines where magazine-fed machine guns are meant to be used on the move and have smaller reserves to compensate, and the big boys are meant for defensive postures. Of course, being married to the bipod means that the attachment will hopefully have to suck less, as if you've ever tried to use a bipod in Battlefield 4 or attach it to a surface, you'll see what I mean. It's no surprise that both LMGs and bipods have pretty much gone the way of the dodo in Battlefield Hardline. But what do you think about LMGs? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. The next weapon in May's DLC is the OTS-14 Groza. We don't know a whole lot about how DICE intends to implement this in Battlefield 4, as the weapon itself is a bullpup assault rifle, but I think it could also appear as a carbine, as we've already got an assault rifle in the AN-94. Frankly, I think both weapon categories are beyond overloaded with weapons, and if it's going to make a unique fit, it's going to have to be interesting for its category. For example, if DICE decides to make it a carbine with a 7.62mm damage model, meaning a 33 damage top end, it could be a neat little counterpart to the Ace-52 CQB. The last weapon we've seen a glimpse of was the Oliva action rifle. Now there's speculation over what exact make and model of weapon this is and what role it might fit. The current community guess is that we're looking at a tactical Marlin 1894. It's possible this is some other lever action rifle, which leaves the slot open to a lot of speculation. What would make this weapon stand out in its heavily populated weapon categories would be a combination of quickfire functionality, damage, and more interestingly, a lack of a scope. Does this functionality belong in the DMRs, and should it be available to every class, or as a rifle exclusive to the Recon class? There's a part of me that would even love to see a revival of the damage output of Battlefield 3 DMRs, but until we get our hands on this weapon, it'll be a mystery. The final weapon of the DLC is a total mystery. Nobody knows outside of DICE, at least at the time of this video's recording. It could be another assault rifle, it could be a shotgun. There's definitely two fan favorites from Battlefield 3 still waiting out there, the G3A3 and more controversially the M16A3. While I don't think anybody wants to see the one gun beats all wonder weapon version of the M16A3, it doesn't have to be added to the game in the exact manner it was in Battlefield 3 or even Battlefield Hardline. Conversely, I think the G3A3 is far less controversial, although the play assault like a Recon is already covered by the AN-94, so who knows? I'd definitely like to hear your thoughts on what you wish the last weapon was in the comments below. Finally, the DLC is also coming with an updated version of Battlefield 3's Close Quarters Gunmaster. If you're not familiar, this is a game mode where all players start with one weapon, usually a pistol, and it upgrades over time as you get more kills. The first person to traverse the entire upgrade line and then get a kill with a knife wins. It was a fun diversion in Battlefield 3, and I'm curious as to how they're going to bring it into Battlefield 4, at least in terms of maps. I'd have to guess that TDM maps will be the target for this game mode, and this should lead to some interestingly refreshing gameplay on those maps. But while we know most of its contents, no word yet on whether this weapon content will be premium, paid, or free. But what we do know will be free are the night maps. The Night Maps project continues on the community test environment, and we'll probably be seeing that content drop about the same time as a spring patch. The community map project and other classic-inspired maps are likely still a ways out, though we may start seeing hints of what's coming on the CTE in a few weeks. There have certainly been suggestions about this from DICE LA's developers. But that's not all we've got to look forward to in the Battlefield franchise this year. We've still got Hardline's DLC and premium content to look forward to. There have been no specific announcements for that content outside the names of the 4 DLCs, Criminal Activity, Robbery, Getaway, and Betrayal. I'm not sure I could conjure less descriptive titles if I tried, but these new bits of content should start dropping this summer. I'm interested in seeing what Visceral comes up with now that they have a baseline to work off of, and they've seen what works in their game and what does not. Finally, there is, of course, Star Wars Battlefront. Other than the fact that DICE Stockholm was working on a Star Wars game with the Battlefront name and a few bits of concept art, we really don't know a whole lot about the next game from DICE. That's about to change, and hopefully in a big way, at the Star Wars celebration in Anaheim, California from April 16th through April 19th. How much we're going to see is anybody's guess, but with the end of year 2015 release date only a few months away, the marketing is going to have to ramp up soon. And let's not forget the mention of Battlefield 5, of which we know nothing other than the working title. Is it in the past, the present, the future? Nobody knows. Personally, I'd love to see another entry in the World War II part of the franchise, but I think that genre has seen its heyday. I'd definitely like to hear what you think the next Battlefield title should be, and what you think of the Battlefield franchise's future in the comments below. That's it for this video about Battlefield's future. If you're new around here, please take a moment to check out my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.